We are going to be putting in this PLZ, People Love Zebras, Amazon Chinese Android head unit today. It's 10.1 inches and a full 60 watts, dude. It comes with a little remote. It's pretty cool. It's got a detachable screen. We're going to be putting that in today. I'm just kidding. It's already in. But we're going to go back in time because we're like magic and shit. We can do that. And we're gonna I'm gonna show you how to put this thing in there. I'm gonna show you the steering wheel controls. It's a little out of place and disconjointed. If you can't deal with that, then well, you got bigger issues. But yeah, we're gonna talk about how to get the steering wheel controls hooked up for an analog system. I'm not gonna touch on CAN bus because I didn't have to deal with that in CAN bus. Obviously, if you gotta do CAN bus, it's kind of just set it and forget it. It's all push and play, plug and play, 10-inch one in play, 60 watts in play. It's all that stuff in play. So we're gonna talk about CAN bus. There's a lot of videos on CAN bus. If you need that, do some searching and go find it. But we're gonna talk about analog systems, how to test your car, see if you're analog or digital. And if you're analog, we're gonna talk about how to get your car hooked up to something like this using those analog signals and where to find those wires, the whole bit. All right? And then we're also gonna talk about the head unit a little bit, what I like, what I don't like. So yeah, let's get into it. Got it all put in, still some things left to do. This is going to be loose for the time being because I don't have my amp yet and I don't have the RCA cables to run all the way to the back. In another part of the video, I think I say that I'm going to do that, but I don't have a set in my stock of cables long enough to go back there. So I'm just going to order some nice ones, get the amp on order, and then I'm just going to leave all this trim on because it was a little hairy getting it off. By the way, I'm going to link to the description of another guy's video. Huge shout out to him. I'll put his video description in the chat for those of you with this generation Honda Accord. He's got a really good video on how to go about getting the all the trim paneling off and everything. So I started out with the Bineyes. I don't remember the exact name. It was like the 10.1 inch Bineyes video. Kind of one of the competitors to this one. It was another Android Chinese and Android head units, CAHs as they're called them, Chinese Android head units. I really wanted to love that first radio. I liked a lot of things about it, but I just, for the life of me, could not get it working. I tried for a week and a half going back and forth with the support. There was a language barrier there. I sent tons of emails, couldn't get the steering wheel controls to work, couldn't get the radio to tune. I did the software update. I did everything that I possibly could. It wasn't working out. So I ordered the PLZ 10-inch, let's see. People Love Zebras, I think is the company name. Don't quote me on that, but it's a 10.1 inch car multimedia player. I'll put a link to it in the description. Super happy with it so far. There was a little, I think 5 or 10% off coupon, which was kind of a bonus. I mean, for as cheap as these things are to begin with, it's really amazing that they even consider putting a coupon on it at all. When this one came, I can't even begin to describe what the difference in quality was off the bat. Like immediately, everything about this, the packaging, the way it came with the screen protector installed. The other one, you know, had bubbles. It looked like it had already been used before, possibly. I can't confirm that. One thing I love about this is it's got the volume knob, which I love. Like, I'm old school. I was doing car stereos back in the 80s, and that to me, like, it's just kind of like, that's a deal breaker. Like, I really wanted this. The other one had the push buttons, which I was willing to kind of deal with if I had to. But I will say, like, you know, hands down, this is just overall it's better. So I'll just show you, there's a couple other videos that walk through this, but this does have a tilt function, and then it does lift up and down, and I'm just gonna show you, it's pretty hard. Like, I'm pushing on it probably 5 or 7 pounds of pressure to get that to move. I like it right here because then, you know, from where I sit, this is what it looks like. I can see all my buttons and I can just reach in there and get them, no problem. And then if I don't have anybody else with me, and screw them if I do, I could just tilt this towards me, and it's like the perfect angle. One other thing I love about this over the Bineyes, and I'm just going to continue to use the Bineyes as a point of reference because that's the only Android head unit that I've gone with or considered. The boot up time of this one is so much faster. I'll just show you. Just go ahead and power car on. Welcome screen, and we are at the home screen. Yeah, so what happened there was it was having trouble connecting to my phone because I was running the video on it, but as soon as what happened was it connected and it just kicked the video out. But the normal startup time for this is just a matter of a few seconds, which was huge. The other one was almost a minute. I mean, it was like well over 30 seconds just to get to a home screen. This one, if you're not running a video like I just was, it's just within 3 or 4 or 5 seconds, just anything you would expect from, you know, a modern car like our new Explorer over there. You know, it's right on par with that. Got the rear camera installed. I think, yeah, I have to turn it to the ignition on first, and I'll just put it in reverse here. It's not running, but yeah, I can't complain about that. I think it was in under 2 seconds. I will say, like, probably can't tell from the video here because it's a video on video, but I would say, like, compared to a normal car, my wife thinks it's about the same. I think the video quality of the add-on camera that I got that fits the Honda and just replaces the taillight assembly that I covered in another part of the video, I don't think the quality is quite as good as, say, a factory like our Explorer over there. But I can see a shopping cart, I could see a kid running behind me, I could see, you know, it's as good as it needs to be. Now, if you were going to get into like DVR recording, which you can do on these, you can actually port that video into a DVR, and for front and rear cameras, and then, you know, run that as a constantly running video and have it recorded 24/7, or, you know, whenever the car's on. You could do that. You're just not going to get that high quality unless you upgrade the cameras, and I'm not even going to go into that because personally I'm good with this. So if I turn that back on to from ACC to just the first position there, it goes back to the home screen. Everything else is working fine. The only thing I have installed is like YouTube or anything like that, but it does, you know, by default came with Spotify, which we have Spotify accounts. That's what we use, and Audible is another big one that I use. So, you know, I'm kind of good with it for now. It's got my OnX, baby. I can hunt in my car. Yeah, man, I'll be running down deer out in the field. Shit, get out of my way. So, but yeah, like I will say, like, the quality of this head unit is remarkably above par on the Bineyes. It's like when you pick this thing up and hold it, because it detaches, there's 2 clips in there and you can slide this whole thing out. It's amazing. Like, the quality, I felt like I was holding an iPad. I'm not even exaggerating that at all.
All right, guys and girls, so this is probably the part that you came for. This is what I'm looking at here is the technical, this is the service manual for the Honda Accord, and I believe this covers 2008 to 2010, but this is going to apply to a lot of Honda vehicles. But on page 2389 of the manual, come down here, get your multimeter out, and the best thing to do, because these, at least on the Scosche and the harness adapters that you get on Amazon, they generally don't have these pins ported out. So if you have a pin kit and you can add the female pin to the harness side, or the other thing you can do is to grab a wire taps, and I'll show what those look like here in a second. But if you grab a couple of those little wire taps, you'll be able to grab these pins on the upstream side behind the harness. On the car side, you can grab pins, it's 5 and 16. I realize it's a little difficult to see, but you're going to want 5 and 16. Okay, it's they're calling it remote ground and remote. Okay, so between these two values, you are going to be looking for resistance. Between these 2 pins, you're going to be looking for resistance values, and these are the resistance values. Okay, there's 5. And it's telling you what they all are here. So, you know, if you hook a multimeter up to these 2 pins, and you can verify it just to make sure that you've got the right 2 pins, you are basically looking for 100 ohms between these 2 pins for volume down, and then at volume up, you're looking for 357, and so on, all the way down. So once you've confirmed that you've got resistance values between these 2 pins on the upstream side of the wire harness, then you know you've got an analog system and you don't need a CAN bus adapter. So what you're going to want to do is grab those with taps and then just put little slave leads on them going up to the radio, because they're not, you know, unless you've got a pin kit, you can add the pins in and then grab them on the downstream side of the harness. You can do that. But if you don't, like I did, just put the taps on the car side behind the harness, and then just put leads coming off of those. And it's going to be a little trial and error, but the good news is you've only got a 50-50 chance of getting it right. And what I mean by that is, on the car side, you've got SW1 and you've got SW2, and then you've got a ground. The confusing thing, what a lot of people make the mistake of doing, like I did the first time around, is connecting that SW1 and 2 to these two pins directly, and that's 100% wrong. As best I can figure, SW1 and SW2 on the radio is basically a shift. So you've got SW1 to read a certain range of resistance values on the radio, and then if that doesn't work, then you have to use the SW2 side, and I believe there's probably an overlap in there somewhere. That's the best I could figure. But in my case, and for the Honda Accord, at least in the 08 series, and probably, you know, forward and backward several years on these analog cars, what's going to happen is you're only going to use one of the SW wires, and then for the other pin you're going to grab the ground. So for remote ground, which is the brown, pin 5 in my case, and probably your case as well, you're going to connect that to the ground side of that pin out. And you notice there's going to be two grounds. There's going to be a ground on the radio. Behind the radio is going to be two grounds. One is going to be on the main harness side that has, you know, the power, the constant power switch, remote, illumination, all that. And there's another ground on the little 6-pin connector that has the steering wheel controls. That ground is the one that you're going to want to connect to the remote ground brown here. And then the 50-50 shot you have is connecting the pink wire to either SW1 or SW2. In my case, I believe it was SW1, I'll confirm here in a minute. But yeah, if it's not one, it's going to be the other one. And then you connect that, and then you can go into the programming mode on the radio, and it'll pick it straight up. Okay, we'll get back to the other part now.
All right, so here we are in the cab. I'm gonna go through this so you can actually see what I've done. So we're talking about this 6-pin connector that comes off the back of the unit, goes in right there. I'm not gonna cover this necessarily, just because there's so many other videos on how to do that, and really it's just power and speakers. That part, hopefully you're past that by now, or you already know how to do it and you're just stuck on the steering wheel controls. All right, so a couple things. So these are the connectors that I'm talking about in the other little segment. They're just like little wire taps, and basically how they work is you stick your live wire all the way through. You kind of like put it, you put your tap here in the side that doesn't go all the way through, and then you slide it over the piece that you're trying to tap into. So if I was trying to tap into this wire, I would slide this part onto there and then put the tap into there and just push it back until it hits that little stop. And then when you take this thing and punch it down, this little blade comes down, and it actually doesn't cut the wire, it just kind of breaks through the insulation and then taps into the wire. And I don't know if you can see it, probably not. Yeah, but yeah, it's basically like a little guillotine situation, and then this thing flips over and it locks in, and then it looks like that. You've got it on there. They work great. I've never had one fail. So this is what I mean. If you don't have the means to put pins into the back of this, and I didn't have necessarily this pin size to add those pins in, so what I just did is now this connector is the main. That's this guy right here. This is AC. This is, I believe this goes up for the hazard control, and then there's other stuff in here. This you're not going to use. That is for the antenna. This is for the screen. This is for that LCD up there, I believe. That's for that segment display, which I'm still looking for a pocket for that. So if you know of a pocket adapter for that, drop me the link in the comments, man. That would be a solid. I haven't found one yet. Basically what we're doing here is we're going to pull off of this brown, and we're going to connect that to the black connector of that 6-pin adapter that comes off the back of the PLZ Android remote, Android stereo. That's going to be your black back. These are, by the way, you have to get these right. I realize that it's just a resistance value that it's grabbing, but you have to make sure you get this correct. And the reasoning is, essentially the radio is going to just send out a very low voltage signal, and it's going to look for a resistance value returning back, coming through the ground side. If you connect this the other way, if you put this black to the pink and the brown to the steering wheel control, what's going to happen is that it's always just going to read a 0
resistance value, because you're basically putting that low voltage signal straight to ground. If you can't find them, my recommendation, if you got a little multimeter, just set it to ohms and then rule out all the pins on that main connector that you know what they are, like all your speakers and your power and everything else. And then just look for 2 wires that modulate, that show a resistance value when you press this up and down. And once you find those, there's the green one coming off the back here. It's that green, and then steer wheel control 1, which is the gray one here, I'm not using. Okay, and like I said, I just put these little leads on here to extend the wires out so I could have the luxury of letting this whole unit just sort of sit on the seat while I was mapping this out and figure out what went where. And I've got a lot of loose wires here because I'm still in the process of hooking up the rear camera. By the way, FCCD, if you haven't figured that by now, that is the front camera power control, which if you're going to install a front camera, you'll use that. If not, then you won't need it. And then the other ones are brake control and the brake detect, sorry, and the rear camera control. That's what those other ones out of the 6. What else? Yeah, and that's it. So you could just hardwire these straight in with butt connectors if you're a savage, or you could solder and shrink wrap like I've done with these, which, by the way, if you haven't started soldering and shrink wrapping, you absolutely need to do that. The connections are immensely better. Plenty of videos on how to do that, so I won't go into that. And then but I like using these little slip-on connectors. And by the way, if you are still crimping connectors like this with a pair of vice grips or channel lock or other such device, you're a savage and you need to evolve to using one of these. My life has been a lie, and I realized that when I first bought this one and started using it, because all my life I've always just used a pair of vice grips to cinch them down. So it's good enough. You're just smushing a little connector. There's a couple videos out there. If you have, I'll try to find them and link to them in the description, but there are a couple videos on the benefits of using a proper crimping tool. Holy mother of chocolate, you will not believe what a difference it makes when you're actually using this guy as opposed to just a pair of vice grips. And if you're already doing it, then you can call me a savage, because that's how I've been doing it my whole life. But anyway, now that I know, I've seen the light. And by the way, there's a good and a bad way to do it in terms of where you want to put. Because if you see, I kind of did these backwards. I did one, well, it's 50-50. You get the idea. One side's curved, the other side's got the little prong that pushes in. And there's a good and a bad, there's a better and a worse way of doing it. Either way, it's going to be immense, like 9 times better than using a pair of vice grips. But there's even an optimal way to face the curved end. And the guy that I'm thinking of, hopefully I can find his video again, because it was a YouTube short, he does it both ways, and he shows why one way is better than the other. It's pretty amazing. Good stuff. Anyway, that's what I got for here. We'll get back to the rest of it. Hey, I want to talk about rear cameras for a minute. So with the PLZ camera comes with this guy. Oh, there's a software update evidently that I need to do. So with the PLZ radio comes this backup camera, right? Pretty cool. But it's generic, that's great. But if you've got a Honda like me, if you clicked on the video and you're looking at this because of the Honda Accord or other Honda, there's a couple other Honda models that this fits, there's an option. You can upgrade this to this guy, and I'll put a link to it in the description. Essentially, it's a camera. I believe the specs on it are very similar, if not the same, to the one that comes with. I mean, the camera itself actually looks identical, but with one notable difference. This one is mounted on a format that basically replaces the stock lens that is just above the rear license plate. And this is really cool because, one thing, you don't have to drill holes in your car, but for another thing, you can just pop this guy out and stick this one in within a couple seconds. And they give you this really cool little, you basically just pop this gasket out and you take this part of it. It's got double-sided padded adhesive. It's got a little
And it's got a little adhesive on there, and it's also got a bit of foam that creates a weather seal and keeps it from rattling. And you pop this in there, and one thing that may not be entirely obvious when you're hooking it up is it has two sets of power leads. Okay, one is to power the camera, but the other one is to power this pair of LEDs on the inside that replaces the lights for the license plate, which was very cool. So this one, you're just gonna, what I did is I tinned the leads here using a soldering iron to just kind of stiffen them up. And what I'm gonna do is basically just stick them straight into the wire harness female end of this, where this would normally plug into. And then probably just fold this over and then do some electrical tape around it. And then the other power lead is gonna go here, and they give you the adapter for that. I just don't have it in the box, it's already in the trunk. So yeah, a little bit of an upgraded option if you've got a Honda vehicle. And does it say what model's in here? I believe it says it in the description. There's a couple different Hondas that it fits. I don't think it actually says anywhere in here. Yeah, but I remember when I purchased it, it said Accord, which is what I have, a 2008 Accord. And then there were a few other Hondas. In fact, it was actually marketed for a different Honda, and then mine just came up when I clicked on it and started looking at it. I got this too, but you don't need this because the radio comes with what appears to be plenty of cord, and so this is basically just a duplicate. The only difference is this has a female to female butt connector, whereas the one that comes with the radio, I believe, has female on one side and male on the other. So it's meant to just go straight in to the radio. Cool. That was it for rear cameras. All right, so here is the kind of my upgraded option. Rear camera, and all mounted and installed. You can't really see it, but that double-sided tape is up inside of there. So much cleaner, such a better looking option. As you can see, it just replaces the light on the other side. And a really cool thing is it's got those little replacement LEDs, so you're not going to get pulled over for having an unilluminated license plate. And so my tinning of the wires to stick them in here, that didn't really pan out. I couldn't get them stiffened up because it was just I couldn't get them because they were such a small gauge wire. I really couldn't beef them up enough to go in there and give me a warm and fuzzy that it wasn't going to come loose. So I went in and just used the wire taps that I covered earlier. And like I said, there was a little bit of a dexterity check with using those wire taps, but it's not too bad. And yeah, you can kind of see it from the back there, nice and clean. And then now we just got to get this run and down through the inside of the trunk here, and hopefully I can find a path going up through there without having to dismantle the entire car. I'm gonna go ahead and run the power leads and the RCA cables for the amp while I'm in here, just to save myself having to pull it apart again. I don't have my amp in yet. I do have my subs. This is my pawn shop find. I didn't pay that. Talked them down quite a bit but it's a couple of the older, I think it's like a third series or third generation R series Alpine, R series 12s, and I pulled them out of the case, and man, they were wired pretty wonky on the inside, but I got that all cleaned up and put them back in, and I tested them out with my other car that I have an amp inside of, and they hit really, really hard. So I'm looking forward to how this is going to sound once it's all in there and connected and wired up. All right, I forgot to mention earlier, this other part, right? So we covered the light power, but then the other power cord that you see coming off, of course, has got one of these. I've already plugged it in, so you're probably not going to be able to see it. Oh, there it is. Hidden back there. It's hiding in the back. All right, this guy. So what we're going to do is go now into the reverse taillight power. Okay, and in my case, the wire that they gave me only made it to right about there. And then as you see, I got a little I got a solder splice in there with a couple wraps of heat shrink, and I ran it down here. Came right down to the driver's side taillight assembly. Alright, so my phone's got a mind of its own. It just decided to stop recording. Anyway, if you're not sure which one it is, you don't have the service manual, it's not too hard to figure out. There's only a couple options. One of them is going to be your blinker light, which is going to be amber. That's this guy here. If you're not sure, pull it out, look at it, or you can just look at the back of the car. And then the brake light, running light. So if you're not sure, this one's going to have 3 wires running into it because it's a dual filament bulb. One's for the tail light, and then one's for the brake light, and then a ground, right? So you know it's not going to be that one. And then this is going to be the amber one. Shit. This is going to be the amber one. That's the blinker. So you know it's not that one because you pull it out and it's amber, or it's got an amber lens. So this is the only other option, and it's going to be clear, and it's going to be going into a clear lens, not an amber lens or an amber bulb. So I just used a couple taps here and then tapped it in. I just, on my little extender piece, I just used green for ground and then red for positive. And you always want to, if you can, do a continuity check on there. I just use this guy before you button everything back up, and make sure that everything is on the up and up. And I just confirmed that I had power to the jack side just now before I plugged everything back in here and pushed all this stuff back into place. Okay. I didn't really go much into the features or the learning mode. Oh yeah, you know what? I will cover that. Hang on. Let me get back in here. It's going to kick me out, so I'm going to wait for it to do that so I can restart this. Okay. All right, what I wanted to show you here, wait, that's not it. That's phone settings. You want to go down here and then go over here, and this is going to be your setup settings. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through, I'm going to reset to factory settings. So you can see now, I've actually got my 5 buttons programmed. I don't have like power, mute, eject, reject? Reject? What the hell is a reject? If you know what a reject is. Oh, is that for phone? If you know, let me know in the comments. I have no freaking idea. So it's got to be phone related. So dial, mute would be cool, but I don't have it. So I've just got the 5. I just got mode and then up, down, channel select. So those are the 5 I had. So let me see if I can clear these. Yeah, okay, so I cleared them. So they kind of give you some instructions up here. What it says is connect the SWC wire, press clear button. There's no clear button, and then start the learning, which, and then, you know, and then it says long press the steering wheel, then short press the screen button. Okay, so this is a 2-handed operation. So what you do is, and I have to kind of come over here and use 2 hands. I'm actually using my thumb on these buttons over here, and I'm going to use this hand on here. So what it wants you to do is press the up volume, hold it, and then press the volume button. Shit, hang on. There. So it's kind of quirky, but once you get the hang of it down, let me try it again. So I think the trick is you have to still be holding the steering wheel button when you push the button on the screen. So I'm gonna press down now on the volume, and then press that, and now you see how it changes color. Okay, I'm gonna do for channel up. I'm gonna press channel up now. That's previous. Oh wait, I did that backwards. Hang on. So I'm gonna do channel up is actually next. So channel up next. So, oh, that's cool. So it unprogrammed the one that I screwed up. So that's cool. It's smart enough to, well, it's smarter than me. That's good. So let's see. I'm gonna do channel down, which would be previous. So that's the trick. You push here, wait a second, keep holding it, and then press the corresponding button here while you're still holding the steering wheel control button, and you're in there like swimwear. Okay, so I'm gonna press mode. Oh, what did I screw up? Mode. Okay, now we're good. We're good on mode. We got our 5 buttons. I hit enter, and then it says save somewhere. Yeah, save. Okay, right there. Went away, and then that's it. Now I'm gonna go back to home and then see channel. You can hear it beeping, and then mode. So when I hit mode, of course you get the idea by now. It's just kind of like the running thing. Anyway, everything's working now. I'm gonna do volume up, volume down. Good to go. So I figured I would throw that in there because the instructions they kind of give you in here, well, let's just say I'm not terribly crazy about it. But one thing I will see, like if you go through and right around here for steering wheel control, when you get to page 18, it starts talking about the steering wheel control. The first thing, if you notice, it gives you in the manual is your adapter, the CAN bus adapter, which here they're recommending 2 different ones. There's this SWI CP2. Now, if you have a digital car, one that doesn't use an analog resistance value separation for the controls, then you're gonna you're gonna have to get the CAN bus. But if you have an analog system like mine, I mean, there's like half the manual is dedicated to this. I mean, this is all the way to page 30, and it's still going on this. You know, they're really harp on this. They don't. You know, if you just read this manual, you would automatically assume that, oh, I'm going to need a CAN bus adapter, but you don't if you have an analog car. So figure that out first. If your car is analog or digital, you might be able to just look it up online. If you don't know for sure, there's another part of the video where I talk about how to do those resistance values, you know, mapping out those wires, and then just using a simple multimeter. You don't need anything fancy, just an El Cheapo multimeter. You can easily determine whether or not you've got an analog system. If you're analog, you don't need the CAN bus, at least not for this system. It may take you some trial and error with the SW1 and 2 wires to see which one of those you're going to be using. But that's the beautiful thing about this on the older cars. When I say older, I mean this is a 16-year-old car, 2008. So yeah, I happen to get fortunate. You may not. I think they're about $60 for one of those CAN buses. So not terrible, but you do have to factor it into the value of the head unit if you want to retain the value or the functionality of your steering wheel controls. And I think they do some other stuff too. I think they do climate control. There may be some cruise stuff integrated into that you can port over to other things other than a head unit. Honestly, I don't know, but I think CAN bus isn't just steering wheel controls. CAN bus is like the entirety of the car. It deals into the ODB system for doing, you know, scanning for error codes and stuff. Anyway, that's what I got for you guys. That's my feelings on it. I'll probably do another follow-up to this once I get the amp and everything installed, and, you know, some non-factory speakers, so I can really test the quality of the speakers. You know, so far it seems to have enough power to drive the factory speakers just fine. Like if you were just wanting to put this in and, you know, just do podcasts and stuff, you're not a big audiophile, you don't want to do, you know, bass and upgraded stereo equipment, you'd probably be just fine like this. I mean, it seems, I don't know how many watts it is. I didn't even look at it. It doesn't matter to me because I'm going to amp everything from the RCAs anyway. But it, you know, I mean, it seems to me like it has, I mean, definitely more than the factory system did. So it's going to drive your factory speakers just fine, as far as I could tell. So that's what I got for you guys. Hope this was enjoyable and informational, and I hope it saves you the hassle and trouble that I had to go through with, you know, learning how to get this thing all set up and not having to buy the other system, which, nothing against them. Maybe that head unit, you know, maybe the Bineyes will work for other systems better than it did for me, but for my Honda, this is 100% the optimum choice for me. So thanks for the watch, and give me a like. See ya. Bye.